Every morning is a quiet rapture of its own, a moment where you are taken out of yesterday and placed into a new reality. But the rapture doesn't arrive with trumpets, chaos, or the world breaking apart. It arrives in the soft decision to reshape your life from within. This is the moment that determines how you will walk, speak, act, and think for the rest of the day. And if you speak to yourself with intention, the day begins to obey you. These 7 powerful reminders are not mystical predictions. They are psychological tools, anchors that elevate your mind above fear, noise, and self-doubt. When you open your eyes in the morning, there is a moment, small, almost invisible, where your mind is untouched. Nothing has entered yet. No worries, no messages, no expectations. This is the most valuable moment of your entire day because it is the only moment in which your direction is entirely yours. Most people don't recognize this gap. They roll out of bed and immediately surrender their mental space to the world. They hand over their attention like someone handing over the keys to their home. And then they wonder why they feel scattered, drained, or overwhelmed before the day has even started. It's because they allowed the world to choose their direction for them. Choosing your direction is not about forcing life into a perfect plan. It is about anchoring yourself before the current begins to pull you away. Think of the mind like a river. If you don't guide it, it flows wherever gravity takes it, and gravity always pulls downward, toward old habits, toward fear, toward distraction, toward the same patterns you're trying to escape. But when you wake up and consciously place a thought, a belief, or a decision at the center of your mind, you redirect that entire flow. You give your day a shape, instead of letting it collapse into randomness. You decide the quality of your actions before those actions even happen. That is self-leadership. That is inner sovereignty. The challenge is that your sensing mind is always hungry. It wants stimulation, noise, movement. It wants to scroll, compare, react. It wants you to believe that you need to see something, hear something, or check something before you can begin your day. But none of that is true. Every great teacher, every disciplined individual, every person who has built something meaningful begins their day from within, not from outside. They create a few seconds of internal clarity. They choose thoughts that align with the path they want to walk. This is not positive thinking. It is conscious thinking, intentional, deliberate, and rooted in discipline. The direction you choose each morning becomes a compass for everything that follows. If you begin with frustration, you carry frustration. If you begin with doubt, you carry doubt. If you begin with purpose, you carry purpose. The first thought becomes the foundation for the entire architecture of your day. The problem is not that people lack focus. It's that they never take ownership of the one moment where focus is easiest to shape. And so the world steps in. It chooses for them. It fills the empty space with noise. What would happen if, before touching your phone, before thinking about yesterday, before letting your mind scatter, you simply told yourself, I choose my direction before the world chooses it for me? Just say it quietly, not as a mantra, but as a declaration of identity. Suddenly, the small distractions of the morning lose their ability to hijack your attention. You operate from a place of intention, not reaction. Your actions become deliberate. Your emotions become steadier. You start to notice that you have far more control than you ever realized. Not control over the world, but control over, or position within it. And that is the only control that truly matters. You will not avoid challenges. You will not escape difficulties. But you will meet them with a mind that has already decided the tone of the day. This is how leaders think. This is how disciplined individuals move. Not by eliminating uncertainty, but by strengthening themselves before they step into it. So tomorrow morning, when that quiet moment appears, claim it, protect it, and use it, because the world will always try to choose your direction, but the world only succeeds when you remain silent. Speak first, decide first, lead from within. The idea that growth requires discomfort is something we all claim to understand, yet very few people truly practice it. We say we want to grow, but we resist the very experiences that shape us. We want strength without struggle, clarity without confusion, and progress without pressure. But the human mind doesn't evolve through comfort. It evolves through challenge. And this is why the morning is the best time to remind yourself that discomfort is not an enemy. It is a signal. It tells you that you're entering territory where something meaningful can happen. When you wake up and tell yourself that growth requires discomfort, you are giving your mind permission to stop fighting every difficult moment. You are shifting from avoidance to acceptance. And acceptance is a form of psychological strength that most people never develop, because most people treat stress as a threat, not a teacher. They encounter a difficult situation and immediately assume something is wrong. But the truth is, the presence of challenge often means you're finally stepping into parts of your life that need transformation. Discomfort is not punishment, it is feedback. It is life saying, this is where your potential is hiding. Think about training a muscle. If you lift a weight that is too light, nothing changes. If you lift a weight that is slightly uncomfortable, the muscle grows. The same principle applies to everything internal: discipline, emotional control, patience, confidence. These qualities are not gifted to you, they are forged, and the forging process is never soft. That's why Shi Heng repeatedly emphasizes that suffering is not the problem. Suffering without purpose is. When you understand the purpose behind the challenge becomes fuel. It becomes a tool rather than a burden. But the reason we struggle to embrace discomfort is because the mind is naturally biased towards safety. The mind wants repetition, predictability, familiarity. It wants the known, even if the known is limiting. This is why people repeat the same emotional cycles for years. They're comfortable with what harms them because it's familiar. They are uncomfortable with what frees them because it's unfamiliar. And so growth feels like danger, even when it's exactly what you need. The morning affirmation cuts through this illusion. When you wake up and consciously remind yourself that growth requires discomfort, you rewire your instinctive response to challenge. Instead of saying, why is this happening to me? You start saying, what is this teaching me? Instead of contracting, you expand. Instead of resisting, you engage. This shift in perspective changes the entire architecture of your day. You stop being a victim of inconvenience and start becoming a student of your own development. And this mindset influences your behavior in subtle but powerful ways. You stop procrastinating because you no longer fear the discomfort of beginning. You stop hesitating because you accept that uncertainty is part of progress. You stop being offended by difficult people because you recognize them as opportunities to strengthen your patience and emotional intelligence. You begin to see that every uncomfortable moment contains a hidden invitation, a chance to develop the qualities you admire in others but rarely practice yourself. It's important to understand that embracing discomfort doesn't mean seeking pain or forcing suffering. It means allowing the necessary friction of growth instead of running from it. It means trusting that the pressure you feel is not breaking you, it's shaping you. And when you approach your day with that sense of purpose, your resilience increases, your clarity sharpens, and your confidence becomes rooted in something real. Not in how easy your life is, but in how capable you have become. So tomorrow when you face something difficult, and you will, pause for a moment. Don't react automatically. Don't retreat. Remember what you told yourself in the quiet of the morning. Growth requires discomfort, and the discomfort you feel right now is not a sign to turn back, but a sign to move forward. There is a quiet truth about the human mind that most people overlook. We carry far more than we need, not physically but mentally. We wake up and immediately pick up yesterday's arguments, last week's disappointments, last year's fears. We replay conversations that can't be changed, relive mistakes that can't be undone, rehearse anxieties that may never happen. And then we wonder why we feel heavy before the day even begins. It's because the mind is already full. There's no space left for clarity, no room for new possibilities, no capacity for fresh perspective. This is why reminding yourself each morning to release the weight you don't need to carry is not just poetic advice, it is psychological hygiene. Imagine walking into a new day the way you walk into a room with your hands full. If someone offers you something valuable, you can't accept it because your hands are already occupied. That is exactly how people move through If they want peace, but they're carrying resentment. They want growth, but they're carrying guilt. They want clarity, but they're carrying noise. And so the day becomes a repetition of what they already feel, not a doorway into what they could become. This is why practices like meditation, breathing, or simple mindfulness exist, not to make you calm, but to make you empty. Calmness is a result of space. Space is a result of letting go. Letting go is a result of understanding that not everything deserves a place in your mind. And that understanding begins in the morning, when your mind is most receptive. When you look inward and say, I release the weight I don't need to carry, you're not denying your experiences, you're refusing to drag them into every new moment of your life. People often misunderstand letting go as forgetting. It's not. Letting go means removing the emotional charge from something so it no longer pulls you out of your present. It means acknowledging that what has already happened cannot serve you if it only keeps you stuck. It means understanding that your attention is finite and what you give it to becomes your mental reality. Shi Heng often speaks about the importance of inner cleansing, an internal clearing of the mind that allows clarity to emerge. Without this clearing, the mind becomes like a crowded room where even important thoughts can't breathe. The mind is designed to think, but it's not designed to hold on to every thought. Thoughts are meant to pass through, not take residence. Emotional weight accumulates when we treat temporary experiences as permanent truths, when we rehearse pain until it becomes identity, when we let old versions of ourselves dictate new decisions. And the tragedy is that most of this heaviness is optional. It exists because we feed it. We revisit it. We identify with it. Letting go is not a single act. It's a discipline of choosing where your energy belongs. When you walk into your day with a lighter mind, everything changes. You become more present, more observant, more capable of responding instead of reacting. You listen more clearly. You think more sharply. You move more freely. And perhaps most importantly, you stop draining yourself on the inside before life even challenges you on the outside. A clear mind doesn't guarantee an easy life, but it guarantees a stronger one. So tomorrow morning, before the world asks anything of you, ask something of yourself. Ask whether the weight you are carrying is necessary, helpful, or even yours. And if it isn't, set it down. Release it. Not because the past doesn't matter, but because your future does. There is a misconception many people carry without ever questioning it, that urgency equals productivity, that moving faster somehow means moving better. But urgency is rarely a sign of mastery. More often, it's a sign of internal disorder, of a mind that hasn't learned to slow down enough to see clearly. When you start your morning by telling yourself that you will act with calmness, not urgency, you are not encouraging laziness. You are training yourself to meet life with clarity instead of panic, intention instead of impulse. Calmness is not the absence of pressure, it is the disciplined handling of pressure. A calm mind can see solutions that an urgent mind overlooks. It can take decisive action without being pushed around by emotion. It can enter difficult situations with a feeling of inner spaciousness, even when the world around it feels tight. This is why you often admire people who remain composed in chaos. They are not lucky, they are trained. Their calmness is a form of internal power built through years of resisting the instinct to rush. Most people rush because they're afraid of falling behind, afraid of missing out, afraid of disappointing others, afraid of not being enough. When you peel back the layers of urgency, you almost always find insecurity hiding underneath. And insecurity is a loud teacher. It pushes, it pressures, it distorts your perception. When urgency takes over, your mind becomes narrow. You stop thinking long-term. You react instead of responding. You choose the fastest path, not the right one. But when you begin your day anchored in calmness, you are expanding your mind instead of shrinking it. You give yourself the mental space required to choose wisely. You become less impulsive, less easily influenced, less emotionally hijacked. Calmness strengthens your presence, and presence strengthens your decisions. This is why Shi Heng often says that a warrior moves slowly internally, even when moving quickly externally. The body can be in motion, but the mind remains still. There's also a profound psychological shift that happens when you act with calmness. you begin to trust yourself more. When you stop rushing, you start engaging. When you stop reacting, you start observing. When you stop forcing outcomes, you start noticing pathways you couldn't see before. Calmness creates a mental environment where intuition can speak, where creativity can breathe, where intelligence can surface without being drowned by emotional noise. Life rarely demands urgency. It demands presence. Yet we have trained ourselves to believe that everything must be solved immediately, answered instantly, finished rapidly. This era glorifies speed but forgets depth. And depth is where real transformation happens. Depth can only be accessed by a mind that is steady, not scattered. Acting with calmness also teaches you something essential about control. It reminds you that you cannot always control circumstances, but you can control your internal rhythm. You decide the pace of your thoughts. You decide the tone of your reactions. You decide whether you meet the moment with tension or with steadiness. And once you master that inner pace, external pressure begins to lose its influence over you. Calmness is not passive, it's powerful. It's what allows you to step into difficult conversations without fear, into uncertain situations without panic, and into challenges without losing your center. When calmness becomes your default, you start noticing that the world slows down around you, not because it actually changed, but because you changed the way you move through it. So tomorrow, when life begins to pull you into speed and noise, pause, breathe, and return to the intention you set in the morning. Act with calmness, not urgency. Because a calm mind doesn't just navigate the day, it shapes it. Most people wake up and immediately step into a pace that isn't theirs. The mind starts running before the feet even touch the ground. Messages, responsibilities, deadlines, expectations, everything pushes you into motion, and without realizing it, you begin your day in a state of internal urgency, as if life is already behind schedule. But urgency is not clarity. Urgency is not strength. Urgency is simply pressure disguised as purpose. And this is why beginning your morning with the intention to act with calmness, not urgency, is a powerful form of internal leadership. Calmness is not passive. Calmness is not slow. Calmness is control. It is the ability to remain grounded even while the world around you is moving. When you operate from calmness, you don't lose your center. You don't react automatically. You don't allow external noise to determine your internal state. In many Eastern teachings, calmness is described as the stillness at the center of a spinning wheel. Everything moves around it, yet the center remains unmoved. This is the state you begin cultivating the moment you tell yourself, today I move from calmness, not urgency. Urgency comes from fear. Calmness comes from understanding. Urgency comes from feeling you must constantly prove something. Calmness comes from knowing that nothing is strengthened by panic. Every rushed action contains tension, and tension blinds the mind. It narrows your attention. It makes you overlook important details. It makes small problems feel large, and large problems feel impossible. When you rush, you move with the belief that the moment controls you. When you are calm, you move with the belief that you control how you meet the moment. And this is the shift that changes everything. When you stop rushing, you stop leaking energy. You stop scattering your attention. You stop letting the world decide your direction. A calm mind listens more clearly and sees more accurately. It's not overwhelmed by possibilities, it organizes them. It's not thrown by obstacles, it evaluates them. Calmness creates space inside you, space where wisdom can surface, where intuition can speak, where patience can guide. Urgency collapses your awareness. Calmness expands it. This is why truly disciplined individuals are calm. They don't rush into decisions, they enter decisions. They don't react to emotions, they observe emotions. They don't hurry through challenges, they navigate them. Their calmness isn't a personal trait, it's a trained response. It comes from understanding that panic never improves a situation, it only distorts your perception of it. And the irony is this: when you choose calmness, you often complete tasks faster, you think more clearly, you communicate more effectively, you move through the day with less friction. Urgency speeds up your body but slows down your mind. Calmness slows down your body but sharpens your mind. And the sharp mind always outperforms the hurried one. Acting with calmness doesn't mean avoiding pressure. It means transforming how you carry pressure. It means remaining internally steady, even when externally challenged. It means refusing to let the speed of the world interrupt the rhythm of your mind. This is something you practice each morning, not by forcing stillness but by choosing it, by reminding yourself that presence is not a luxury, it's a discipline. And when you set this tone at the start of your day, something shifts. You find yourself speaking more thoughtfully. You listen with greater attention. You engage without tension. You handle complexity without collapsing into chaos. You begin to sense a deeper confidence, not the loud confidence that needs to be seen, but the quiet confidence that needs only to be lived. So tomorrow morning, before the world accelerates, decide your pace. Choose the rhythm of your thoughts before life chooses it for you. Act with calmness, not because the world is calm, but because you choose to be. A calm mind doesn't escape the storm. It becomes the one part of the storm that never loses direction. There comes a point in every person's development where they must confront a truth that is both empowering and uncomfortable. You are responsible for the energy you bring into a room, the words you choose to speak, and the impact you leave behind. Not because you can control everything, but because you see and control yourself. And this form of responsibility is not restrictive, it is liberating. It transforms you from someone who is shaped by circumstances into someone who shapes circumstances through presence, awareness, and intention. When you start your morning by reminding yourself of this responsibility, something shifts in the way you move through the day. You stop living reactively. You stop operating as if your thoughts and emotions are accidents. You begin to understand that the energy you carry is not random. It's a reflection of your inner discipline. Shi Heng often emphasizes that true strength is the ability to govern your internal world before you step into the external one. This means recognizing that your tone, your body language, your reactions, even your silence, all create effects in the environment around you. Most people scatter energy without realizing it. They speak without intention, respond without awareness, and behave as though their actions vanish the moment they occur. But energy doesn't disappear. It is absorbed by the people around you. It shapes perceptions, influences moods, and creates atmospheres. Think about the difference between someone who enters a room with quiet confidence and someone who enters with agitation. Nothing needs to be said, yet everything is felt. One person stabilizes the environment, the other disrupts it. And both outcomes began within the individual long before they walked into the room. Taking responsibility for your energy means you understand this dynamic and choose to guide it rather than ignore it. It means recognizing that how you speak is as important as what you say. Words can heal or harm, uplift or diminish. They can open doors or close them. They can turn conflict into clarity or escalate clarity into conflict. When you choose your words consciously, you stop using language as a reaction and start sing it as a tool. You communicate with clarity, precision, and awareness. You speak from strength, not insecurity, and your impact goes beyond words. It shows up in the way you listen, in the way you pause before responding, in the way you treat people who can do nothing for you, in the way you carry yourself when no one is watching. These seemingly small choices are what define your character. They are the proof of your inner training. They reveal whether your discipline is something you perform or something you live. Responsibility also gives you the power to shift your emotional environment. When you decide to manage your energy instead of letting it manage you, you stop spreading negativity. You stop projecting frustration onto others. You stop allowing temporary emotions to create permanent consequences. You become someone who adds stability instead of turbulence. And people feel that. They respond to it. They trust it. A person who is responsible for their energy becomes a presence others rely on, not because they are perfect, but because they are consistent. This mindset doesn't demand that you suppress your emotions. It simply asks that you guide them, that you observe them, that you understand their influence before they become action. It is a higher level of living, one where you are no longer moved by impulse, but by intention. So tomorrow morning, when you look at yourself, even briefly, remember the influence you carry. The world doesn't just react to what you do, it reacts to who you are in the moment you are doing it. Take responsibility for your energy, your words, and your impact. because the quality of your presence is the legacy you leave in every interaction. There is a particular kind of fear that sits quietly beneath the surface of most people's lives. It is not fear of pain or failure or even loss. It is the fear of what cannot be predicted, the unknown, the unplanned, the transitions we cannot fully understand. We fear what we cannot anticipate, and so we try to control everything. We cling to certainty, even when certainty keeps us small. But growth, transformation, and awakening all require movement into the unknown. And this is why telling yourself each morning, "I do not fear what I don't understand," becomes a profound shift in the way you engage with life. The unknown is not your enemy. It is the birthplace of every new version of you. Yet people often imagine transformation as something dramatic, something loud, something overwhelming, like a rapture that arrives with chaos. But real internal rapture is quiet. It is subtle. It happens through insights, through unexpected clarity, through moments when your identity begins to stretch beyond its old limits. The mind resists these moments because it cannot categorize them. It wants what feels familiar. But the familiar is where your past lives, not your future. When you choose to meet the unknown with curiosity instead of fear, you are training your mind to let go of defensive thinking. You are giving yourself permission to grow without needing to understand every step of that growth. Shi Heng often teaches that clarity arises after movement, not before it. You learn by doing. You understand by experiencing. You expand by stepping into uncertainty instead of waiting for uncertainty to disappear. Fear of the unknown is deeply tied to the ego. The ego wants to be right, to be prepared, to be in control. But transformation requires humility. The humility to admit that you don't know, you don't control, and you don't need to. This is not weakness, it is strength. When you stop fearing what you don't understand, you create mental space for new ideas, for new directions, for new versions of yourself to emerge. Fear closes the door. Curiosity opens it. And the unknown is not always external. Much of it exists within you, unexplored abilities, suppressed emotions, untapped potential. People fear looking inward because they're afraid they won't like what they find. But avoiding your inner world doesn't protect you, it imprisons you. When you wake up each morning and choose not to fear your own depths, you begin to uncover aspects of yourself that you never allowed to surface. You begin to integrate, not hide. You begin to understand your patterns, your triggers, your behaviors, not with judgment, but with awareness. This posture of openness changes the rhythm of your day. You stop overthinking and start observing. You stop trying to predict outcomes and start navigating them. You stop demanding certainty from life and start participating in life. And when challenges appear, instead of collapsing into panic, you approach them with steady curiosity. You ask, what is this showing me? What is this teaching me? What is trying to grow in me through this experience? That mindset turns fear into fuel and confusion into insight. The most meaningful shifts you will ever experience rarely come from understanding, they come from stepping. You understand only after you move. And when you learn to trust this rhythm, transitions no longer feel like threats. They feel like invitations. They feel like a call from a higher part of yourself asking you to evolve. That is the quiet rapture, the inner awakening that doesn't tear your world apart, but expands it from within. So each morning, remind yourself not to fear what you don't understand. The unknown is not darkness, it is possibility. And possibility belongs to those who are brave enough to step into it.